2011. We're going to do Chapter 6 review, but as a review, we're going to take up all the answers to the quiz, and then we're going to take up specific chapter review questions. So, for some of you, you really don't need to take this out. Keep working on the review. But for most of you, please pay attention to the front. So, quiz. Very first question. It asks you to put this into factored form. Okay? Which means they just simply want us to factor it. Just like chapter, what was it, 4, 5? We did it so long ago. I take the factors of the first coefficient, which is 1, so 1 and 1. Factors of the last coefficient, so I have 1, 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. Okay? We know we got to pick a pair from each, and the products have to add up to our B, which is -2. I can quickly take a look at this. I know, because these are both going to be ones, that 4 and 6 will work. And I'm going to need the 6 to be negative, which means in the brackets I'm going to have X as my first term for both. And my last terms, I'm going to have a +4 and a -6. Because both the first terms are the same, doesn't matter which bracket they go into. That's it. That's the answer to 1A, factored form. X plus 4 brackets, X minus 6. Question 2, X-intercepts. It's called the zeros on your quiz. I gave you the hint that those are called X-intercepts. You should know the definitions to both of those. So, X-intercepts. In order to find the X-intercept, let's go back up. Remember, this equation said Y equals, and now it's in factored form. X plus 4, X minus 6. To find the X-intercepts, what do I set equal to 0? Y. Y equal to 0, and then I solve for X to find the X-intercept. So, I put 0 on the outside. I have X plus 4 and X minus 6. And we know that each of these columns represents a number. So we just assume that both of them are going to be equal to 0. So we split this. X plus 4 equals 0. And X minus 6 equals 0. This is nice. Many of you did this, but then you forgot to actually solve for X. Oh, shoot. No. So, I got to solve for X. When I bring 4 over, it becomes negative. X equals -4. When I bring -6 over, +6. There you go. Number 2, the two X-intercepts are X equals, or, you know what, I can write them as coordinates. These are my X-intercepts, and I'll actually write the coordinate. That's going to be -4, 0, and 6 and 0. Those are our two X-intercepts. Okay, so I already got some information. Number 3. Find the coordinates of the vertex. Now we know that our two X-intercepts are called our R and our S when we graph them. And to find the X value of the vertex, we take R plus S and divide by 2. That's for the X value of the vertex. Okay? So my R and S we'd already solved. We have -4 and 6. Those were from above, divided by 2. It's going to give me 2 over 2, which gives me 1. So the X value of my vertex is 1. I just have to find the Y value now. I take that 1 and I can plug it into either the factored form or the standard form. They're both going to give me the exact same answer. In fact, I can probably quickly do both for you. Is it X minus 4?
Yeah.
X plus 4. Plus 4. And what was the original? Y equals X squared minus 2X minus 24. Boom. Right? We take this 1 value and plug it in for the X's. So I'll do this equation first, the one on the left. Y equals 1 plus 4, 1 minus 6. It's going to give me 5. And -5. Y is -25. Let's verify. I'm going to plug it into this equation just to make sure. Y equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 24. 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1 is 2 minus 24. This says 1 subtract 2, which is negative 1. Negative 1 minus 24 is negative 25. There it is. The coordinate of my vertex is 1, negative 25. Question 4. Find the y-intercept. What do I set equal to 0 to find the y-intercept? Set x equal to 0. I set x equal to 0, and I use either of the equations we had above. We'll do them again. We'll do the factored form one, which we had, and we also had standard form. You could have used either of these to solve this. Okay? X equal to 0, no problem. 0 plus 4, 0 minus 6, 4 times negative 6, negative 24. So my y-intercept, we know x is 0, y is negative 24. Let me verify with the other equation. 0 squared minus 2 times 0. That becomes 0, subtract 0, subtract 24. Boom, 24. So our y-intercept is 0 and 24. Many of you guys put negative 25. That's where the vertex was. Not quite. And finally, 6. Does this equation have a maximum or minimum? And what is it? That means all we have to know is the vertex and which way it opens. We already solved the vertex in question 3. Our vertex was 1 and negative 25. So I know this y value, the negative 25, is either going to be the max or the min. I just got to figure out which way this opens. So I go way back to the beginning. A was positive in this instance. So because it's positive, which way does it open? Upwards. Which means we're going to have a what? Minimum. So we have a minimum, and the value is, or the lowest part is, negative 25. You could have also put y is base 25. And let's graph this. I'm going to quickly show you what the graph looks like. I can get a graph up here. Okay, here's question 7. Now the graph I gave you wasn't quite numbered right. Some of you rechanged the scale. Some of you just extended it. Either was fine. Before I put the scale on this graph, what I'm going to do is find out the coordinates I have. I know my vertex was at 1 and negative 25. And my two x-intercepts were, what were they? Negative 4 and positive 6. Positive 6. Those are my x-intercepts. So, here's my x and my y. It looks like the range of the points I need to get. I'll actually write the coordinates for the x-intercepts. Negative 4, 6, 0. Well, the range on the x is really 1. I can put a scale of 1, and this will work fine. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And that'll encompass everything. That's not a problem. But the scale of our y, I got to go all the way down to negative 25. It's better maybe if I go by 5. So we go negative 5, 10, negative 15, negative 20, hey, negative 25. Should put those on the other side. Right? And same thing up here, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I now have my graph. This becomes very straightforward. If you guys had the wrong numbers throughout it, some I gave you marks on the graph, it took them away in the answers. Some of you, I kept your answers to right because of the process, it took marks away on the graph. Hopefully you guys had all of this. When you went to graph it, x-intercepts, negative 4 and 0. There's one of them. 6 and 0. There's another. Vertex, 1 and negative 25. Way down there. And let's get our parabola. Where is it again? try the parabola. Here it is. Boom. And we have our parabola. It extends, obviously. You guys could have extended it as far as you liked, past the x-intercepts. So that's what our parabola roughly looks like. Vertex down at 1 and negative 25, and we had our two x-intercepts. All right, so question 8, you had this equation. Now, in this class, I didn't tell you guys this. Well, I told some of you. This needed to be changed to positive. Because I didn't voice it to everyone, if you still just did the process right, and you logically thought about your answers, I gave you the marks. It was fine. This question was supposed to have a positive number on the second term. It asks us how many cases the students need to sell in order to maximize revenue. Maximize. In other words, they're talking about the vertex of a parabola. Okay? This is a negative, our A is negative, so we know it's a parabola that opens downwards. They want a max point. Our max point is going to be called what, guys? There's a vertex. It's also called the vertex. Which means to find the vertex from standard form, what do I have to do? I got to change it to vertex form. And in order to do that, what's the process called? Completing the square. Thank you. One person got it. Oh, that's good. Okay. I need to turn this into vertex form. In other words, I have to complete the square. So, I divide my first two terms by our A here. So I take negative 25 out. This becomes x squared. This becomes negative 4x. Many of you would have said positive 4x. That's fine. I would have accepted that. Now that that's out, I take this term, and I need to divide it by 2 and square it. It's going to be negative 2 squared. What's it going to be? 4. That's simple. So my next line is negative 25, x squared minus 4x. And we use this, plus 4, subtract 4, 1,500 on the outside. Now remember, we have to take the negative 4 to the outside. But in order to do that, we have to multiply it by the first term, 4x plus 4. Negative 4 times negative 25, 100. It becomes 100 on the outside, plus 1,500. Now, this is a perfect square trinomial, so I just got to take the square root of the first term and the last term and bring down the operation in front of the second. So square root of x squared is x. Square root of 4 is 2. I bring my square here, and it's subtracted, 1,600. That is vertex form. Now, many of you would have had this because you did not change it. If you had this, that was completely fine also. Your conclusion would have varied a little, that's all. So, when I look at this, I was to graph this parabola in my vertex form. I know that, I'll quickly do a graph, I would have to go in the right answer, 1, 2 over, and 1,600 up. I would go to the right 2 because it's negative. Remember that. So in other words, they would need 2 cases. Whoops. Now because I didn't tell some of you guys to change that sign, you ended up with this answer, which means on your graph, you actually would have went this way. Okay? And apparently, mine is 2 cases. That's fine. I just want you guys to logically think of something. So if you said no cases, because it doesn't really make sense to sell negative 2, or if you said negative 2 cases, I gave you the answer. Okay? It's all about logical thinking. There are business plans where it makes more sense to not start the business because you lose money if you do. Okay? I just wanted you guys to think logically. And finally, let me get this last one in the time. I got 15 seconds. What was the amount of profit you would have got then? $1,600. That was B. B would have been $1,600.